Staff ready? Nate? Call the meeting Government Affairs to order. Staff, please call roll.
Senator Atkinson. Senator Hardy.
Here.
Senator Liparelli.
Here.
Senator Parks. Here. Chair Goicoechea.
Here, and please mark Senator Atkinson absent excused. And because I am presenting both these bills in this hearing, I will turn it over to my very able Vice Chair. And with that, you're in charge, boss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Which bill would you like to start on?
You're the man.
We'll start on SB 249, open the hearing, and remind the testifier to identify himself for the record. That was funny. We'll open the hearing on SB 249.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Pete Goicoechea, bringing you SB 249. And I will let Ms. Easley from Nye County really explain why, but the bottom line is it came to our attention that you can, in fact, bill for a bill that you neglected or didn't bill in statute, a statute that dates back to the 1800s. You can go back clear to 6 years, and I believe they had a case where they received a bill, the commissioners disallowed it, and the DA said, no, you've got to because it's not 6 years old. That's a long time to have a debt, have to carry it, and especially as we all go through the budget process on an annual basis, it became very problematic. So the bill actually takes that 6 year period and changes it to 1 year, and that is the bottom line of the bill, the way I understand it. So that's what we want. Thank you. Any questions?
No questions? Go ahead, Ms. Easley.
Thank you, Senator Goicoechea. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, it's an honor to appear before you today to testify in support of Senate Bill 249, and I want to personally and on behalf of Nye County extend my gratitude to Senators Goicoechea and Hardy for sponsoring this bill. My name is Joni Eastley. I am representing Nye County. Effective cash management is a priority for local government that requires not only timely collections, but it requires timely disbursements as well. It ensures that we have adequate cash on hand to pay budgeted operational expenses, which in turn minimizes the guesswork of managing our liquidity. Timely receipt of invoices is really critical to the financial management of local government. And when a person or a company who is owed money by a county and does not invoice in a timely manner, it creates financial hardship on local government entities. And I'd like to cover a few of those hardships that are created by not timely billing a county for goods or services. Difficulty in determining if the good or service has been received when the invoice has been submitted years outside the fiscal year in which the debt was incurred. This could result in an inappropriate disbursement and make it very difficult for the county to dispute the invoice. Difficulty in preparing operating budgets, not knowing if the owner of a large budgeted indebtedness will invoice the county during the fiscal year or sometime within that 6 year demand for payment period. And that is exactly the situation that Nye County has found itself in twice over the last fiscal year. State law requires that expenses be booked in the year they were incurred. The books are closed and audited at the end of every fiscal year, and if an invoice is subsequently received, we must absorb that unbudgeted cost in the new fiscal year. Many county budgets are in poor shape, even after years of raiding reserves and delaying costly projects. Cuts in services have become an all too common method of addressing declining revenues, and counties must be able to make accurate projections of fiscal year expenditures. And finally, accepting and paying invoices years later actually increases opportunities for internal theft. we're not living now in the days where invoices could only be delivered via Pony Express or on foot or by horseback. Through technology, invoices can be delivered electronically, and even regular mail provides for swift delivery. Government doesn't enjoy the same six-year privilege, and we must pay our creditors within a certain period of time, or late fees and interest will apply. The results of negligent and irresponsible billing practices shouldn't be borne by local government. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of this bill and encourage its passage. Thank you.
I have a question about, does the 1 year period begin from the provision of the service or delivery of the good? When does the 1 year period start?
I'm not clear on that.
Well, I don't have any objection to shortening time. I'm just wondering, the way the bill reads, if in its existing law, if the owner of such allowance shall demand sum of money within 1 year from the date of original allowance of such sum of money. I don't know what that means.
I believe the bill's intent is clearly 1 year from the provision of service. Then you would have up to a 1 year time frame to at least bill for it. That's my intent.
Thank you.
I believe council will agree.
For the record, Heidi Clarkson with the Legislative Council Bureau. As was previously testified to, this is a very old statute with very antiquated language. I think that there could be confusion on when the 1 year period starts based on some of the language that's in the existing subsection 1. And so I think that if we're amending the statute, it might be appropriate to understand what the committee's intent is if they do amend the statute, so that if necessary, I could tweak the language as necessary for a possible amendment in the work session.
Thank you, Ms. Clarkson. Senator Parks, you have anything? Thank you. Senator Liparelli. Next presenter.
Thank you, Senator Hardy. For the record, Jeff Fontaine, Executive Director of the Nevada Association of Counties. And first of all, we'd like to thank the sponsors for bringing this bill forward. We are here to go on record as supporting SB 249. Ms. Easley, I think, did a great job at explaining why we think this language needs to be cleaned up, and it's a very old language that just doesn't make any sense in today's environment. Thank you.
And you don't mind if we clean up the time at which the 1 year starts?
No, we don't have any objection to that.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Senator Goycochea for the record, and I think Section 1 is, or Section 1 Sub 1 is kind of confusing because it has the 2 year time frame in it, but really we're talking about, and again, as staff said, a very old statute. It probably doesn't, I don't know if it even needs to be in there when we start talking about the indebtedness and you know, indigent sick or road funds. And again, I think we're getting back into a piece of statute. We probably really need to look at and see if that really needs to be in there, as well as starting the clock upon the service, the provision of the service. And I think both those amendments would help this bill considerably.
Is that okay with you, Ms. Clarkson?
It sounds like the committee would be discussing just removing the provision, deleting the provision of subsection 1, and making sure that the rest of the provisions of the bill, subsections 2, 3, and 4, make it clear that the time period is 1 year from when the money would become due. And I'm happy to work with Senator Goycochea to make sure that I can craft language that captures his intent and the intent of Nye County.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might make a suggestion, again, for the record, Joni Easley, Nye County, and I appreciate that. Jeff and I were talking before the hearing that we were hoping a conceptual amendment could be made to remove Section 1 subsection 1. Because it just didn't, it really didn't fit with this bill. And my recommendation would be that the invoice needs to be submitted within 1 year of the receipt of the good or the service.
So
Yeah.
if, I think that's appropriate. I think if
Yes.
the service is an ongoing service,
Yes.
then it has to be something different than the completion of the service, because the completion may go on for 6 years.
Yes, and Senator Hardy, for the record, Joni Eastley, I agree with that. And otherwise, we will state in a contract, the county will state in a contract what the requirements are in terms of billing and if it's a recurring service.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other, Senator Parks?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm having a little difficulty with this only in that I had a situation many years ago, and I was trying to figure out how that would fit into it. I guess first I should ask if there's a lobbyist in the room for the Union Pacific Railroad. Not seeing anyone. Okay. Back in, I think, the early 80s, the County Regional Transportation Commission entered into an agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad to build an overpass over West Tropicana Avenue in Las Vegas. And in the process, an agreement was reached, an amount was reached. The Union Pacific built the overpass. Unfortunately, they built it too low, but that's another issue. And they never invoiced the Regional Transportation Commission for the cost of the overpass, which at the time was somewhere $8 to $9 million. When I became the assistant director at the Regional Transportation Commission in 1990, I went looking for funds that we could use to build the beltway around the county, around the city, and came upon this allocation of money that was just sitting there. I contacted Union Pacific, and 2 years later, they still hadn't. I asked them to invoice me. 2 years later, they still hadn't invoiced me. So I reallocated the funds for building the 215 around the city. So if I'm reading this correctly, then they really missed the mark by a country mile. That they had probably a decade that they could have asked for the money and never did. And after I asked them to invoice, 2 years later they still hadn't invoiced. So I guess this is a good example of what we're talking about, what this bill would address, is that quite often down the road you don't, things change, people move on to other jobs, and a claim comes forward and you go, well, where'd that come from? So I don't think I have any problems with this. I think, if you're owed money, you need to request it in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parks. I think we all have our heads nodding that this sounds reasonable, and we'll make the amendment, we, as in you, to fix all this and make it do well. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to SB 249 here or in Las Vegas? Is there anyone neutral on SB 249? If not, we'll close the hearing on SB 249 and open the hearing on SB 238. Those presenting, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll dig through here as I rearrange my papers there conveniently on the floor before starting. So, again, Senator Goycochea, for the record, bringing you Senate Bill 238. And I think as we open this 238, Senate Bill 238, politically the smart thing to do would have been to stay completely away from this. However, the right thing to do, I believe, was to bring it forward. In 2010, there was an advisory question held in White Pine County. It was a county-wide measure, and in that advisory question, the majority of the voters in the county agreed to consolidate services and government. Now, it was, I'm going to say, I don't remember those exact numbers. It was in the 50s and back to the 40s. It wasn't a landslide by any means. But in the past 5 years, nothing has really changed in White Pine County, and I guess the bottom line is I'm tired of being in the middle of it. Constituents contact me continuously about one issue or the other, and it doesn't seem to be improving. I want to make one point perfectly clear, that no one knew that I was bringing this bill other than LCB, and we did significant research on this as far as how it could work and if it could work. The county didn't know, the city didn't know, nor did the Rail Foundation. And I've got to include the Rail Foundation into this because it is an intricate part of White Pine County and those politics. The Rail Foundation is a 501 nonprofit that actually holds the railroad and a lot of that rolling stock, and it is a very big piece of White Pine County, the tourism, and it's a big asset in the community. I want to point out that 238, and even the vice chair and I had some discussion about the language in there. It only calls for a ballot question to be held on June 2nd of this year. And I have to also qualify that. We have to really fast-track this bill through to make that happen. It has to be received by, I believe, the city clerk by April 7th or someplace around there in order to make this work. So, but again, that question is to the voters. Do you remain incorporated or not? That's all it says. I know as you look at the bill, the first line says it is disincorporated. There is no legislative action other than requesting the vote. We've got some really moving pieces here. The city has a fire department that's second to none. However, the city has no police protection. They are dependent on the sheriff's office to provide for their police protection. And I know that continues to be an ongoing problem, the negotiations on how much, who pays for what, where we end up. The county also has a number of fire departments. EMS gets to be an issue. Like I say, and I'm not going to go through the laundry list of the issues we've had, especially over the past year, between the city council, the county not so much, and the Rail Foundation. But I know a lot of the people in White Pine County, and for that matter even in the city of Ely, are not happy with what's going on. The purpose of 238 is to bring that consolidation of government and services to a head. I think we need to address this issue, and I'm here before both the county and the city. I don't believe there's any representation here from the Rail Foundation. We need to move forward with the consolidation as the people want and ask for in the advisory question of 2010. I would gladly pull this bill if I had consensus on the record from the governmental entities that said, hey, yes, we understand this. We will move forward. My biggest concern is that we can go ahead and proceed with this bill, call for a question on June 2nd, and then in the end, maybe the vote would come out that the voters decided to disincorporate the city of Ely. I don't believe, and of course the bill has been amended from the June 30th time frame clear to July 1st, a conceptual amendment, and I don't know if they've got that in the packet or not, the conceptual amendment, but runs it out to 13 months. But the bottom line is, I'm not sure with all the moving parts in it that even 13 months would be adequate if, in fact, the people in the city of Ely voted to disincorporate. I'm very concerned. You've got to understand we've got the water, the sewer, the municipal waste. All those are handled by the city of Ely, and in many instances reach out into the general county. And so it is a problem trying to get that put together, how you could form one level of government. We've talked about consolidation, very similar to what they did in Ormsby County with the city of Carson. That requires a constitutional amendment. we'd be down the road forever getting some of these issues addressed. So I am concerned about the impacts that we're going to bring with this vote. And again, I am asking the local government and the Rail Foundation to come together and see if we can consolidate the services, consolidate the government, without having to put this bill in place that requires an election that I am very fearful might turn out the wrong way. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I am concerned that if they did combine services and then the wheels fell off, both for White Pine County and the City of Ely, it could be hard on them financially. So I'm hoping that we can put all these pieces together and move forward, and I look forward to some of the testimony both from White Pine County and the City of Ely. If they think that is achievable, and again, we are in session, I believe that we could bring any statutory changes that were required to facilitate that consolidation if they so choose to move that way. The only other option, as I see it, is to continue with the bill, and I am concerned about that. Thank you. Stand for any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Parks?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess I have two questions, and one of which I think you answered, and that is, in order to take an action similar to Ormsby County and Carson City would require a constitutional change. Okay.
Constitutional amendment. Again, counties are set by statute.
Right. Okay. I guess my other question is that I remember when we disincorporated the city of Gabbs, and we did that primarily because of financial reasons. Are there financial reasons behind the disincorporation of the city of Ely?
No, not at all. I think the city is very solvent, and at this point, and of course, White Pine County did have a history of having some problems being managed by the Department of Taxation for a couple-year period, I believe, even since you've been in this body and I have. But just because they're solid today, again, I think it depends on how you allocate the services to how solid you are.
Right.
And so with that, I think it takes a truly a master plan by both entities, the county and the city, to consider how they are going to provide these services in the most cost-effective manner to their constituency.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vice Chair.
So, Senator Goycochea, you're not adverse to the two bodies, a city council and a county commission, working together without either one dissolving itself, as it were, as long as they were in accord and maybe even having joint meetings appropriately noticed and working through agendas?
I believe whatever, that would clearly be required, and I would ultimately hope that they could, in fact, and that's why I'm saying we are in session, and maybe statutorily we could facilitate that, but there's got to be some mechanism in place where you could allow for two public bodies to come together, and I realize they could never mix funds, but at least look at their budgets and expenditures and determine whether they're going to pave this street or whether they're going to plow this guy's road. And, the bottom line is I think there's services right now that are being neglected because there is a conflict over whose jurisdiction it is. The people in the city are saying, well, we need to get this street paved, and the county won't do it. And I believe the county's saying, well, it's not our responsibility. You're within the city of Ely. And again, in the end, it doesn't happen.
Thank you. I think it's only fair for me to admit when I first read the bill, I read Section 1, the City of Ely is hereby disincorporated, and I went, what? And then our legal folks, Heidi Clarkson, pointed out that Section 1 is addressed under Section 6 on page 3 of the bill, where subsection 3 states that Sections 1, 4, and 5 of this Act become effective on January 1st, 2016, only if a majority of voters voting on the question placed on the ballot pursuant to Section 2 of this Act vote affirmatively on the question. In other words, this bill does not disincorporate Ely. and won't ever, unless the people of Ely vote according to Section 2 in a majority fashion, shall the City of Ely be disincorporated. So technically speaking, the bill is a wake-up call, I guess, for everybody in Ely who cares, or in the county of White Pine who cares, to have a voice in this process, to heed an advisory council or an advisory ballot question that was some 5 years ago, and figure out if they want to get together or if they want to stay apart, and if they do, how are they going to deliver the services? Is that appropriate to say?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Again, Senator Goycochea, for the record. And clearly, the way this 238 is drafted, it would allow for a ballot question. And if, in fact, the voters in the city of Ely voted no, they didn't want to disincorporate, it would technically, lay the issue to rest, and which is fine with me. Once and for all, it would be settled. It would be a binding question. I guess my bigger concern is if, in fact, the people in the city of Ely determined that no, they wanted to disincorporate, because then I think it would be very difficult to put those pieces together and get them out in the 13 months it would be required. So even though it's my legislation, I am very concerned about it, and I would prefer that the entities came to the table together and figured out how they could achieve this without having a mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments? And from our legal staff, any other observations? Did we say it appropriately? Okay. I would ask for any others who are in favor of SB 238 to come to the table, either here or in Las Vegas. These are those who are in favor of SB 238. And if you could identify yourself for the record, and each time you change or go back to yourself, identify yourself again. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you could press the white button.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to Pete for bringing this forward. My name is Richard Howe. I am a White Pine County Commissioner, and I'm also a citizen of the City of Ely. This ongoing question is not new. It didn't happen overnight. It's something that's been taking place for many, many years. And in 2010, it was a ballot question offered to the county, city and county together. The advisory question passed, and uniquely, the citizens of Ely were the ones who passed it in every single precinct. There are 4 precincts, full precincts of voters in Ely, and 1 split precinct. The vote tally in that was yes in the affirmative, 1,697 votes, and nay, 1,495. But the citizens of Ely in the 4 precincts and the split precinct voted in every single one of those precincts to go ahead and combine the services of Ely and White Pine County. The question comes up all the time, and it's an ongoing thing in a small town. You can imagine just how much debate there is. My firm belief as a citizen is that we are a small community. We are a community, and I call a community, I mean Ely and the county together, of just over 10,000 people. You couldn't put our whole county could fit in either Thomas and Mack or Lauer Event Center. That's how small it is. We have a county government located in the county seat at the courthouse in Ely, and 6 blocks away we have a city government. Duplicate services are happening over and over again. We have, between the city and the county, many agreements. Landfill, police, the senior center, all these things are jointly used, the swimming pool, all used. We just recently, in the last month, we combined the building departments, the county building department and the city building department. The only entity that I could see that isn't really 100% combined, and they do cooperate with each other, is the fire departments in the city of Ely and the county. Recently, we had an arsonist set fire to 2 different buildings in 2 different locations. The city responded quickly because they are the best and most equipped fire department in the county. Nobody questions that. The county also responded to help them out, and they worked together, and they were able to knock down both the fires without any further incident. My main concern about this is that we are such a small serving community. The Churchill County does one government. Monroe County and Esmeralda for years shared a courthouse. It's my opinion that these two entities could come under one roof. The city clerk, the county clerk, everybody could be under one. The administrative costs would be, in my opinion, large. The employees that think they're going to lose their jobs, we need staff. That's obvious. But the administrative part, which is where the biggest cost savings would be handled under one umbrella, one government. The county would be the government, and the city would be a town board, the same as we have other town boards, not Cherry Creek, McGill, Ruth, Baker, and Lund. We have 4 different county boards there. The City of Ely would just be called the Town of Ely. When I was a young man growing up, 65% of the residents lived in the city. The city was the largest incorporated community. Today, that population is more the opposite, 60% in the county, 40% in the city. Most of those residents, long-term residents, sold their homes and moved to just the outskirts. The boundaries in the city and the county are clearly defined. There is no question on services whether the county does this or the city does that. It's pretty much defined. The city limits are defined by map, and the city road department takes care of theirs, and the county road department takes care of their own. By combining them, we would have one department. The county would, under this vote, would become the governing body. We asked that Mr. Gogashia asked, and he's right. I think 100% of this is let's let the people vote. This is not like when you first read it, Mr. Chairman, that the City of Ely shall be disincorporated. This is not the case. This is clearly to ask this board to allow the citizens of Ely only, not White Pine County, the citizens of Ely, the boundaries of Ely, they would be the only ones voting on this. This would not be a county issue. So we would clearly like to see the citizens of Ely's voice heard. And if it went on the same lines as it did in 2010, as I just stated, the citizens of Ely have made their decision. Even though it's 5 years later, they, 5 years ago, decided they would like one government. Let's put it all under one umbrella. Six blocks away, 2 governments, in my opinion, is a waste. And I believe that 100%. I'm firmly in favor of one government, but I'm also firmly in favor of allowing the citizens of Ely to cast their ballot to tell us all what they want. Do you want one government or do you want 2? And I'll make this clear, and I've done it before, is whatever vote the citizens of Ely make, I'm good with. I'm not, like Mr. Gogashia or Senator Gogashia just stated, let's put this to rest once and for all. I believe in my going around town and everything, and my discussions with different people, I believe that this initiative would pass. I believe that the citizens would vote. I can't say they would, but just in the area, the people that I talk to and the circles that I go to, I believe that it is a foregone conclusion that we should be one government. We're just too small of a town. I understand Elko and I understand Clark County, Reno, Sparks, all those need a city and a county government. But I know in the rurals, and I believe in 2008, the state legislature asked every county under 40,000 to look into incorporating into one government. That was a sensible thing to do. Some of the counties have. Ormsby County, it just reversed it. The city of Carson City took over Ormsby County. Fallon has one government. Eureka, several counties have one, and it works fine. We are a commission of 5. The election, if we're allowed to vote, the city council members that are sitting on the board would be allowed to run for office. There's 3 seats open starting next year. So it's not going to be restricted to who runs for what office. All these county commission seats are at-large seats. Anybody can run for it. But my opinion is the citizens of Ely need to have their voice heard. They need to be allowed to vote. And your vote or your decision on this, if you allow the citizens of Ely to cast their ballot, which is the democratic process, the citizens will vote. And it is my hope that whatever the vote is, that it's overwhelming, that there's not a 50-50 tie, that every citizen in Ely goes out and votes, and we have a clear consensus that we would like to be one government. Those are my opinions, and through the research that I've done and the work that I've done, I've worked with other members of the community of the city of Ely that wanted to put this forward before Pete brought the BDR. Last November, in December 17th, I believe was the date, that we had a meeting of, I think it was around 12 or 13 concerned citizens, and we were going to put it on the ballot because I worked with Bob Switzer, who is the city clerk, to find out what the process of allowing this to be put on the ballot in June would be. And I really appreciate Bob for helping me. We found out that we could do, on a percentage, we needed 118 signatures on a petition by January the 20th to bring it to the ballot. That was our original part. We met. They decided there was a lot of other issues that were going on in Ely. They did not want to cloud the issue, so they decided not to proceed with the petition. So the deadline passed, and that's the last I heard of it, contrary to different rumors. Pete did not meet with me or anybody else. I got a call Friday that they were going to put this on the agenda to ask this board to allow us to go to vote. I told him, it's kind of short notice, but I believe in what he believes, and Pete believes that let's let the citizens cast their ballot. Let's let the citizens tell us what they want to do. I think that's the fair, democratic way to do it. I don't see any other way. This group might say, well, the county's doing this or doing that. But in the end result of everything is, in an election, the citizens cast their ballot and they tell you what their position is, how they want it to be addressed. This particular resolution allows that to happen. It allows the citizens to tell the city and the county just exactly what they want. So I would greatly appreciate if you would consider allowing this to go to a ballot on June the 2nd. Thank you. Any other questions? I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions? Next, please.
No, mute. Thank you, Senator Hardy. My name is Lori Carson. I am the vice chair on the county commission. I am in support of SB 238 that Senator Gokachia has brought forward. I don't want to do any repetition. I support it. Our senator alluded to the fact that, yes, that we were in severe financial emergency. That took place in 2005. I was elected in 2006 and took office in 2007. For us to come out of financial emergency, I am well aware of the difficult and hard decisions that a county needs to make in order to be solvent and stay solvent and think about the future. We are a mining community, and consequently, we never know when that mine might close. I think that the biggest thing here that concerns me, if this doesn't move forward, is Senator Gokachia was totally correct that there have been numerous issues in regards to conflict with the city and the county, mainly in regards to our interlocal agreements. As a matter of fact, we are going to mediation next week in regards to an interlocal agreement between the city and the county, so far as the sheriff and animal control. Fire used to be involved in it, but we now have, White Pine County now has formed its own fire district under 474. And in the past, I want to say in the 1990s, there was a lawsuit where the city had refused to pay in regards to an interlocal agreement. Those are the things that concern me. I've been able, I feel like that personally I've had a good relationship with the city. In 2010, yes, the people did vote on this as far as consolidation. And I support that it goes back to them again, and maybe something will finally get done. And other than that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions from the committee?
May I say one more thing?
So Senator Parks is going to ask his question first.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess I have a question for you. Do you run at large for county commission, or are you by precinct?
No, yes, sir. We are all at large.
Okay.
So at that time, I lived 33 miles. When I was first elected, 33 miles from the city, I guess you could say.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Howe, you have something very brief to add?
Yeah, it's very brief. I didn't mention the fact that the city was underwater, or the county was underwater in 2005. I want to make it specifically clear. The White Pine County is in very, very good financial shape. We have a very good finance director, and our assets in White Pine County are solvent, very solvent, to the degree of about $7 to $13 million. So we are nowhere near the trouble that they were in 2005, and I think that should be part of the equation. What condition financially is White Pine County in? And I assure you, White Pine County is in very, very good shape. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. If all of us could be underwater in this drought, that would be a wonderful thing, too. Sorry. Anyone else in favor of the bill? Any opposed? If you could take a seat, make room for those who... in Las Vegas, we have two people at the stand who are in favor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Ridgway. I'm a Las Vegas area resident. I am for the people's choice on this bill. Let the people decide. I like that. I have just a couple of concerns, and I don't want to raise a big stink about it, but I just want to pull up some details that I think might set a precedence for future situations. It involves the enclave clause at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. In Section 5, right down about line 3, it talks about the United States to the acquisition by the United States of the following land. Well, the Constitution specifically calls for purchase. Now, there's several ways to satisfy purchase, similar to a 1031 or something like that. But our Enabling Act of 1864 allowed us to become a state in all respects whatsoever, on equal footing in all respects whatsoever. Now, somewhere in the Constitution, it says just equal footing. So there's been some mistakes in the details of the operative words and things like that. Now, down below, it also says in Section 2 to where the state ceded jurisdiction as long as U.S. owned land. Okay. You've got two operative elements in the enclave clause. The purchase and the ceding is a requirement for the constitutional part. But I think if they use the word purchased rather than acquisition, it would be more in line with the Constitution. And you might even want to put in a purchase price also. That's all of my concern. Other than that, I'm really for the bill. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your testimony. Still in Las Vegas, we have another person down there in favor of the bill.
My name is Carl Marsh, and I am a management board member. I wanted to identify myself as that for the railroad. And I'm not here to speak on behalf of the management board because we didn't know about this bill until the same time everybody else did. And I live in McGill, Nevada, part-time. I live in Sparks the other part of the time. I've watched the argument for 30 years, and I'm in favor of this consolidation because of the not only the waste of resources, but the waste of energy in, trying to come to agreements and the friction that comes from those types of battles. I am in favor of it, and that's what I wanted the committee to know.
Thank you, sir. If you could give your card to the secretary there, that would be helpful. And in Las Vegas, go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Committee. My name is Bonnie McDaniel. I'm a 55-year resident of Las Vegas. I agree with Mr. Ridgway in Section 5, subsection 1, where it says acquisition. Acquisition does mean purchase. And under Section 2, Nevada land should never, ever, ever be ceded to the United States and not be a part of Nevada. If they want to or need to buy that land, they should buy it. Please make sure, even if it's $1, that they buy that land, they purchase that land. Don't just give it our land away. We can take care of our own land. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I fully support this bill and thank Senator Goicoechea for bringing it up.
Thank you. And coming back up here to Carson City, is there anyone else in favor of the bill? Anyone against the bill? If you could come up in droves and sit up on the stand, that would be helpful. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Charles Dodgers. I'm the Ely City Attorney. Obviously, I am
Could you spell your name for me?
Yes, sir. It's Odgers.
Thank you.
I spent a lot of time preparing a legal memorandum. I don't know if it was sent to you. I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to review it. But let me be as succinct as I can, which is kind of unusual for a lawyer. But I'll try.
Take 2 minutes or 3 if you want.
Well, maybe 2 or 3 hours. Quite frankly, I'm a trial lawyer. I'm used to talking to juries. I'm less used to being in a monkey suit talking to legislators such as yourself.
If
but let me be really
stick
clear.
to the bill.
I'm going to. This bill, as proposed, in my opinion, is unconstitutional. There is no enabling statute that allows this board to put a voter referendum on a municipality's board, on a municipality's ballot. There is a procedure that's in place that came with the originating statutes that originated this city, that allowed the city to incorporate. I provided in the packet to you our Exhibit 1, which was the process by which our city, the town of Ely, converted from a town to a city, an incorporated city, in 1907. We have been an incorporated city since 1907. Unlike the county, we've never had financial problems. The state's never had to come in and try to take over our finances. In fact, we have a positive cash flow right now of approximately $9 million, which Mr. Schweitzer is going to talk about. The Nevada Constitution lays forward those things that we can do, that you as a legislature have the right to do. I agree. If the citizens of Ely want to disincorporate, there's a process by which that can happen. And that's found in NRS 266, 775 through 795 inclusive. That's the sole method. Now, Mr. Howe came up and Mr. Goicoechea came up, and here's where I have a fundamental problem. They're asking this committee to regulate the business of the county of White Pine. How many times did Mr. Goicoechea talk about it? Well, nothing changed in White Pine County unless the constituents change. That was his quote. White Pine County holds the railroad and rolling stock. White Pine County does not hold the railroad. White Pine County does not hold the rolling stock. But if you force the issue without the voters having the opportunity to do so, as guaranteed to them through Article 4 or Article 8, Section 1, Article 8, Section 8, Article 4, Sections 20, 21, and 25, and Articles 19 of our Constitution, you are going to be forcing your will, or more appropriately, Mr. Goicoechea's will. The two county commissioners who in commission this week were on record as saying the county doesn't have a position on this, and they're up here today telling you they do. And you have the railroad, whose owner is a very powerful man within our community. He's not the owner, I apologize. He is the president of the management board. Yes, there's strife between the management board and the City of Ely, because the City of Ely is financially responsible for the debt of the railroad. The City of Ely attempted to get the control of the finances to find out how much debt the railroad was in. You have in your packet as Exhibit B a copy of the forensic audit that just came out that talked about a litany of problems with the way the management board was running the railroad. Now, I want to be really clear. The railroad is an asset not only to the City of Ely, but to the citizens of White Pine County. It is an asset because it brings in tourism. The City of Ely's goal in trying to get a hold of the finances was not to close it down, which was the rumor, and which was part of the reason for the recall election that failed. It was so that the City of Ely could find out what the finances were so we could figure out how to save the railroad. At this point, there are approximately $250,000 in debt that never went to Debt Management Committee, pursuant to NRS Chapter 350. The City of Ely was right in doing what it did to look at those finances. It took Justice Rose to tell the Management Committee that the City of Ely has the right to look at those finances. Now, why is Article 4, Section 20, 21, and 25 applicable? If you read those the constitutional provisions in there, it allows this board to make a recommendation to the Assembly and have it voted on to control a county entity, provided it's done to the entire state. It doesn't allow somebody like Mr. Goyachia or the president of a railroad or a county commission to go before this committee and ask this committee to do something that affects only one county. It doesn't have that authority. If you move this forward today, not only will you be doing something that I don't believe our Nevada Constitution allows you to do by forcing a ballot initiative that would generally fall under Article 19 of the Constitution, you are forcing a change to one county, and that is White Pine County, affecting one county, White Pine County. And that is repugnant to Articles Sections 20, 21, and 25 of Article 4 of the Constitution. And that's what you're doing. That's at the end of the day, that's what the deal is. Now, Mr. Howe says he sat with 12 or 13 people and came to the city office, found out the process by which you would put this ballot initiative on. They decided not to. Why? Because they can't get the support. They can't garner the support to do that. What they can't do by going to the voters, they're asking you to do by legislative fiat. And again, I don't know that you have the legal authority to do that. I will tell you that the City Council has informed me that if this does pass, we will be fighting this in the district court. Because, again, on a constitutional basis, I don't believe that this committee has the authority to make that recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Parks? Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and member. I am Robert Schweitzer. I'm the City Administrator for the City of Ely. Implicit within this bill, and as testimony is provided earlier, there's a premise that by disincorporating the City of Ely and merging our consolidated governments, somehow the taxpayers of White Pine County will save money. Certainly we have to consider economies of scale and labor, and to that end, the city and county have merged or contracted services as previously testified to. For example, the county provides law enforcement services for the city, and as mentioned earlier, we have merged our building departments so that the city's building inspector now is the county's building inspector. But let's consider that this bill does not and cannot guarantee the perceived cost savings will be realized. And let's examine the circumstances of the City of Ely and our county. The county does not have a water department, a wastewater treatment department, nor a landfill operation. Taking control of those does not save taxpayers money. You still have to have personnel to run those facilities. There would still need to be administrative staff to process billing and to answer questions. The county has a road department which, as I understand, would need additional resources in order to add the city's mileage to its operations. The same could be said for our fire departments. In order to meet acceptable safety standards and to provide for lower household insurance costs for the residents of Ely and White Pine County, personnel and equipment would be needed. Our parks departments would face the same challenges. Scholarly studies indicate that, with some exceptions, usually those involving financial emergencies or some natural disaster, mergers or consolidations of local governments realize little to no savings or an increase in customer service levels. For example, authors Campbell and Durning provide commentary from their research in merging city and county governments. And I quote, "There's little evidence that services are produced more efficiently or that there will be cost savings, that the benefits of public services and the burdens for paying for them are distributed more fairly, or that the decision of a merged government are any more or less responsive to the needs and interests of the citizens than the decisions of separate city and county governments." Another premise within the bill is that the city of Ely is in financial trouble. That premise, if it's there, is false. The city is on sound financial foundation, as evidence from our recent audit report, which is in your packet, included as testimony. Does the city have enough money to carry out all of its projects? Well, no. We're like any other government entity, including the state of Nevada. There are constraints, and we have to pick and choose the projects that we fund. Another concern that I have is the disposition of cash reserve funds. Currently, the city has $1,560,000 in a discretionary cash fund, which the citizens of Ely have contributed over the years. Since the control of those funds would fall to the Board of Commissioners, there is no provision within this bill that would provide that the monies be expended for the benefit of those citizens. As our city attorney alluded to, we share in ownership of our historical railroad. It is an important asset to both the community of Ely and the citizens of White Pine County. Those assets could be in jeopardy of reverting back to the donor of that equipment in the event that the city goes through a disincorporation. Finally, the city of Ely is fiscally responsible and no emergency exists. There is no guarantee that disincorporation will result in overall savings of taxpayers' monies. And it appears the bill before this committee is a solution to a problem which does not exist. I urge Senate Bill 238 should be reconsidered. Also, Mr. Vice Chairman, would like to read into the record the minutes from a White Pine County Commission meeting from June 2nd, 2014.
You have a copy of that?
Yes, I do. I did provide written copies here.
Okay. Thank you.
Finance Director Elizabeth Francis provided copies of the final budget to the board. I'm reading verbatim from the minutes. She explained she had taken the data within those copies to the commission, and they decided on the last budget meeting to put it into the state-required format. The figures include revenue reductions due to lower CTX and lower net proceeds of minerals, among other factors, such as the failed reintroduction of the electrical franchise fee that was allowed to sunset. She reported a decrease of $806,696 from the anticipated fiscal year 2014 ending fund balance. This is not sustainable, and we will have to be diligent in locating new revenue sources during the year, as well as reducing operations so they aren't funded out of the fund balance. Unquote. And that is in your packet, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Vice Chairman and committee members, I'm Melody Van Camp, and I'm the mayor of the City of Ely. Thank you for the opportunity to let the City of Ely's voice be heard, as its opinions were never solicited prior to SB 238's introduction. Further, I have been in office for a year, and not once was I asked to consider disincorporating the City of Ely. Almost 110 years ago, the City of Ely's stability speaks for itself. Small, isolated, and without many of the advantages of other communities enjoy throughout the state, the City of Ely has stayed fiscally solvent through reoccurring mine closures and widespread economic downturns. This has not always been the case with White Pine County, as the Nevada Department of Taxation took over its management in 2006 due to financial defaults. Despite the fact our community's population is less than half what it was in prior years, the number of White Pine County employees continues to grow, and the City of Ely continues to do more with less. Efficient operation is why the City of Ely's 33 employees are able to deliver the high-quality work product they do. There is no reason to disincorporate Ely. Contrast to the City of Ely's current financial condition of $9 million plus to the good, with endless examples of bankrupt municipalities being absorbed into counties. These sad events illustrate that disincorporation costs the residents more money and provides fewer services. The City of Ely must stay incorporated in order to give its citizens a voice in zoning, economic development, utility services, public safety, recreational needs, and community beautification. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, may I offer just a quick comment? The issue on the ballot in 2010 was...
Could state your name for the record.
For the record, Robert Schweitzer. The issue in 2010 on that ballot was for consolidation. The issue before us now is disincorporation. That is two different questions. Just wanted to put that
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
If you can vacate your places for the others that are going to be coming up. 3 of you could come up. We don't care which 3. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Marion Joseph Hansen. I'm better known as Sam. I'm a high school teacher, and I'm also a member of the Ely City Council. I have bachelor's degrees in English and French and a master's degree in public administration. Those are my academic qualifications. However, I am qualified by the citizens of Ely, who chose not to recall me or my colleagues here in this last election, which I think speaks volumes. I don't think it takes a great deal of perception to understand that this entire process is politically motivated, specifically by those who are trying to conceal what I can call at best, with all my language skills, a pattern of benign neglect. It took a great deal of effort and overcoming a lawsuit to be able to institute a forensic audit of the railroad. We are ultimately, as has been pointed out, responsible for the fiscal affairs of that railroad as the Board of Trustees functioning also as members of the City Council. We have heard and have been concerned and have seen evidence of, as I've said, benign neglect on the part of the Railroad Management Board, who very much did not want us to find out that, in fact, they are in debt a good $250,000 minimum, and that we have potentially greater debt out there, which could possibly reach to almost $1 million. Now, it's also evident that if the City of Ely is dissolved, then that railroad and its assets would be transferred to the county, and they could continue to go on with their pattern of benign neglect, and the citizens of Ely ultimately would be stuck with the bill because they're the ones that have to still foot all of the bills which have been accrued prior to any disincorporation. Now, in terms of not allowing the citizens to speak, they have just recently spoken, but I have no objection to them voting on this particular issue after all of the additional information which they're going to want and should be given to has been provided. As Mr. Goycochea himself pointed out at this very table just a few moments ago, there are so many unanswered questions that it would be irresponsible on the part of anyone or any organization that has any kind of administrative responsibility to launch such a proposal without having done due diligence as to exactly who's going to benefit and who's going to be impacted adversely. As has been pointed out, the county does have a long history of bad financial management. The city has managed to survive these things quite well over all the years. We don't need to go over that again. But I'm not entirely sure that the citizens will be able to understand what the future impact will be with only 3 months of time to be able to assemble that information and data, which goes on and on and on, has been pointed out. And again, this whole thing is motivated not by any great desire of the citizens of Ely. Mr. Goycochea may have been talked to by a couple of them, but I can tell you that I hear from my constituents frequently also, and not one of them has said that they want the county to take them over. As for what happened back in 2010, I voted for that as well. I thought it looked like a good idea at the time, but then, as you know, people do tend to change their minds. I would point to the composition politically of this particular body in the course of the last year to indicate that people do change their minds, and they change their minds based off of information which is presented to them in a calm, reasonable, fashionable manner, which I don't think would take place here in the amount of time that we have remaining between when this proposed vote would take place. We need to have all of the information available to us before anything like this goes to the citizens of Ely, which I certainly don't object to seeing, if they have all the information available to them. But look how long it takes us to be able to elect any particular individual. The election campaign already, just for those of us who are on city council, started several weeks ago. This is a proposal which, as candidates looking at this thing don't have a chance to evaluate and get the time they need to look into the depth of the issues of how this is exactly going to impact things. And that is what I would like to say in encouraging you not to recommend this vote out of committee until information has been given, and we perhaps would be more appropriate to bring this back in another 2 years when this assembly reconvenes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Vice Chairman and committee members, recently in the City of Ely, a recall petition was circulated.
Identify yourself for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry. My name is Bruce Setterstrom, City Councilman. A recall petition was circulated in the city. It was spearheaded by 3 citizens of the city who followed the correct procedures established by the NRS. The petitioners worked hard and long to get the correct amount of signatures needed to force a recall election. The petition failed due to a lack of sufficient signatures. Although it was a valiant effort by 3 respected citizens, it makes me wonder how many more signatures would have been collected if a well-respected and well-liked senator had been spearheading this effort. As many of you know, people vote for issues and candidates based on popularity and likability. Many elected because of celebrity status and not because of issues at hand. I feel it is unfair to circumvent the NRS because a senator says he is tired of the fighting and bickering. Senator Goycochea is a well-liked and very respected elected official. I fear people who will vote on this issue will do so because of the trust they have put in the senator and not because of the issues at hand. Many will not fact-find the ramifications of the disincorporation and will vote in favor of it because of a well-liked and respected senator is spearheading this issue. There are measures to initiate disincorporation, and that is being skipped for reasons that are unknown to me. If Senator Goycochea was concerned about the fighting in the county and the city, why would he not try and help in meetings with both entities to try and come to a solution? Mediation is scheduled this month for that purpose. Let the system that is designed to handle these issues solve themselves by the way it is intended. As Mr. Howe represented, last year they talked about a petition. They needed 115 signatures and decided not to do that. Instead, they went to Mr. Goycochea. I think that the citizens of Ely, if they wanted to disincorporate, they only need a petition of 115 signatures, and they would have no problem getting them if the citizens were decided that that's what they wanted. That's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions? Next, ma'am.
Tammy Carlgren, the Ely City Council. You all have in front of you the examination report of the White Pine Historic Railroad Foundation. This just really smells with ulterior motives from stuff that's been going on in our city. Previous city councils have dropped the ball, so to speak, in relations to the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation's ethical and financial status for a nonprofit organization, allowing the management board and its executive director to run amok, if you will. There have been major conflicts of interests. One example is the chairman of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Management Board is also the president of the Railroad's Bank. There are too many mismanagement issues to name, but just a couple are the misuse of grant money and allowing the executive director to write bad checks and then charging return fees on said checks. The list goes on, and this is all documented in the examination report. What the council had to have done just to get any information out of Mr. Gianoli and Mr. Bassett. Another interesting document that I received is the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Ely and the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation, dated December 10th, 2009. See attached. It states that upon dissolution of the city for any reason, any and all interests which the city may have had jointly owned property shall become the sole property of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation. It's the second to the last page on the attachment. 5B, if you don't mind, I'll read it. Dissolution. Except is provided hereafter upon dissolution of the City of Ely for any reason and all of its interests which the city may have had in jointly owned property shall become the sole property of the foundation so long as there is no revisionary interests which were reserved in the transferring deeds from any grantor in the city and foundation of jointly owned properties. Anyway, this is the short version of a lot of information that you should look into before making any decision on this subject. If the city were to disincorporate, it would be detrimental on so many levels. Thank you.
Thank you, City Councilwoman. Any questions? I'd like you to get up and leave room for the others, if there are any.
Is this on? Okay. My name is Marty Westland. I'm an Ely City Councilman. Thank you very much for letting me address you. I'm going to make this very quick. I respectfully oppose any effort by the legislature of the state of Nevada to affect or promote the disincorporation of the City of Ely or any city in Nevada. Such an effort would properly begin at the local level for local reasons, not at the state legislature. This proposal you are considering has no effect on the state of Nevada and should be removed from the table. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions? Next.
Hey, my name's Ross Rivera, Fire Chief for the City of Ely, and I had sent you all an email which stated the disincorporation of the City of Ely done in the manner proposed without the planning of is, in my opinion, a clear misrepresentation of our government. It seems that the voice of one entity has made its presence and the voice of the lower government entity has not been heard. This just adds to the absence of communication, collaboration, and yet another level of our government. I fear for the citizens of our community in the City of Ely and the neighboring citizens of our community in the county. I fear for the possibility of losing their well-established emergency services that the City of Ely Volunteer Fire Department provides and has provided for 108 years. Precedents established in this manner will be chaos. Will you be there then for us? I'm a lifelong resident, born and raised in Ely, White Pine County. I have been on numerous county boards. I've been part of the Airport Advisory Board for many years, Nuclear Waste Board. I am on my second term of co-chairman for the White Pine County LEPC. I've been on roughly 15 SEDS committees. I have assisted in every pod flu vaccination clinic that we've done in Ely. For our community, this is City and Ely. I call it our community because I feel that we are one and all. Yes, there's disagreements, but I think it makes us stronger. As you don't all agree on everything, I think it's kind of an evil necessity, just as money is. There's been a few issues. Goes actually further than the white hats of our community, as you've seen the commissioners here that demonstrate this issue that's come before you. I think communication, collaboration. Like I said, I've been on a lot of SEDS committees, and these two words always come up during our sessions: is communication, collaboration. I'd like to see more of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Next.
My name's Lauren O'Donnell. I'm a firefighter paramedic. I'm a volunteer for the City of Ely Volunteer Fire Department, and I have been for the last 5 years. Today I'm here representing the Volunteer Fire Department, as many couldn't come because they have jobs, and the ones who don't are back home protecting our community like they have for the last 108 years, and this is a letter I bring from them, which you all should have a copy as well. We come on the floor as representatives of the City of Ely Volunteer Fire /EMS Department. We have been a pillar in the city as a fire department for 108 years. We have proudly and honorably served the citizens of Ely, putting in countless hours and years of our own volunteer time, as well as having lost one member's life in the line of duty. We as an organization feel that the City of Ely should remain an incorporated city, and if disincorporation is something to look at, it should be planned and initiated by the citizens of Ely and not the legislator. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this issue, and thanks for your consideration and knowing that your decision will impact our community. As myself, I'd like to speak on this, seeing the lack of planning and the information going into this and the little time that there is to plan this. I don't see how it can be appropriately planned in that short time in regards for the community's life and safety, and I feel that passing this bill could jeopardize life and safety in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Appreciate it. Any others wishing to testify? For against the bill? I guess I shouldn't say for against, I should say just against. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Vice Chair, Sean Mahan, AFL-CIO. I'm here to represent labor, and we are in direct opposition of this bill, as written.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Wes?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Wes Henderson. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities. We, too, are in opposition of this bill. NRS Chapter 265 contains provisions for disincorporation of cities, and we think that those procedures should be followed rather than a standalone bill. In particular, 265.110 provides for disincorporation by a petition by citizens, and if the city were to be disincorporated, we think that is the route it should follow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Any others opposed to the bill? Anyone neutral to SB 238?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. For the record,
you look familiar.
Thank you. Tom Grady, I represent the city of Fallon, and I had not intended to speak today, but since the commissioner brought up that Churchill County only had one government, I would like the record to indicate that Churchill County is the county, Fallon is a city within Churchill County.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? How many telephone companies does it have? Thank you. Any other neutral? Would the sponsor like to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Again, Senator Goycochea for the record, and I'm going to need to find a good doc for my back pretty quick. So just a couple of points. If I did say it was inadvertently that, because I understand full and well that the railroad and its assets are clearly the property of the city of Ely, and I'd like the minister to reflect that if I did say it was the county by mistake. I can only reiterate that no one was involved in this. I was only responding to my constituents. Now, again, whether county commissioners, various people, in the community are also my constituents, but the bottom line is, and I urge you to please come forward, and you don't have to hold hands, but at least let's work towards incorporating the services between White Pine County and the city of Ely. And that's really all I have to say. Any questions for me? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We'd invite you to sit back up with a good chair.
Thank you.
And while we're still in the hearing, Senator Liparelli.
Yeah, I just would ask the Vice Chair to legal counsel a question about what was raised by the city attorney so we can get some clarity on the eligibility of the language in this bill, whether that argument is the right argument or what legal standing do we have to create this language. And if you have that now, great. If you don't, you can get it back to the committee at a later date.
For the record, Heidi Clarkson with LCB. I don't want to go point by point through the city attorney's legal opinion. However, as with any other bill that the Legislative Council Bureau drafts, we do consider the constitutionality of the bill as proposed. We do believe that the legislature has the authority to refer a question to the city of Ely. We also believe that the legislature would have the authority to disincorporate the city of Ely, form a town. And I don't agree with the findings of the City of Ely Council. We did consider the various constitutional provisions that he raised, and it would be our opinion that the bill as drafted or as amended, proposed to be amended by the bill sponsor, is constitutionally defensible.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Heidi Clarkson, for that. Is there any other testimony from the members of the committee? If not, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 238, and I will turn the meeting over to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you all for being here. It is time to call for public comment. I see some people getting up, but nobody coming forward. So with that, we will adjourn this Friday afternoon meeting of Government Affairs. Thank you all.